In this video, we're going to show you how to install a control arm bushing in your Volvo S60 located in the forward portion of your front control arm. Using a 19mm socket, we're going to loosen and remove the lug studs. And when you remove the last one, be prepared to catch that wheel or hold it in. Then grab that wheel, remove it, and set it aside. And on the bottom portion right here, we have an 18mm nut holding our ball joint. Let's go ahead and loosen and remove this nut. Now normally your brake rotors are going to have a bolt holding the rotor to the hub face itself. I like to throw in a couple of the lug studs here. And this basically just kind of stabilizes the rotor in place because we're probably going to be using a jack underneath this to support it and raise it up a little bit if the need arises. Now right here in the center, 13mm axle bolt. You loosen that, and you want to make sure that your axle is free floating. So with that loose, looks like there's some fresh grease in here, but you want to make sure that the axle is free so you can reach around the back and you can see that our axle is free floating inside the splines. Now for any reason, if your axle is stuck inside the splines, you can use some rust penetrant. Spray it inside here. You can use a brass punch like this, put it in the center and give it a few whacks with the hammer to break that free. Go ahead and make sure that axle is free floating. On our rearward control arm bolt here, it's going to be an 18mm bolt head with a 21mm nut on the top. I'm going to go ahead and throw my box wrench on the top here. Let's go ahead and loosen this. Now on the inside of the frame area here, we have two horizontal bolts going through into our control arm. These are 15mm, and because they are on the inside of the frame lip, I'm going to use an angled 15mm box wrench to go ahead and get in here. And here we can pop this line right out of that clip. I'm going to do the same here. And you might be able to get your ratchet on this forward bolt. The back one is a little bit tighter depending on where the notches are on the oil pan. Here we go. Just want to be careful when backing this out because you are going to run out of room. Okay, we have both forward bolts out. Let's go ahead and pull the control arm out. Next thing we want to do is remove our control arm from the frame side here. I'm going to use a pry bar, and the main place you want to put this is right behind the control arm in the frame. And you can see as I pry this, everything is starting to shift. Go ahead and pop this out. And there it is. Now I want to go ahead and we're going to start by cutting out the center portion of our bushing here. So you can use a hacksaw or something like that, but we're going to use this saw here and just cut the rubber. All right, here's the center section. I'm going to use my saw here to cut the sleeve itself, and then we'll knock that out. Now with the split, What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and roll our edges in here a little bit. All right, we got the old junk out. Let's go ahead and get the new bushing. All right, let's go ahead and talk about setting this up properly so you get the press this in right the first time. And what we need to do is pay attention to this thing first, is that the section of the bushing with the notches here are going to be facing outside. So on this bushing, I wrote outside so that I can't mess that up. If you flip it, it's probably not the end of the world. However, that's the way it has to go. Now lining this up, this bushing with this flat side, these flat sides need to be facing right up against the frame in a neutral position. So I have some marks in here. I'm going to show you how I got that. These are pretty much going to be in line with this rear bushing here. So I took a flat ruler, I put it right in the center of this here, and I lined it up, took my Sharpie marker, and I marked the control arm. Now I'm going to compensate for the thickness of the pen here. I'm going to line this up. I lined it up like so. Eyeballed it, made sure everything was right. It looks pretty good here. And then I took my marker and I marked. That's how I got these two marks here. Pretty critical to the installation of this here. If it's off a little bit, 20 degree, 30 degree, you're going to cause a premature failure of this bushing here and could have alignment problems and drivability problems for something that small. So get it as close as possible. Now that we have these lines set up here, the next thing you want to pay attention to is this. How big this is compared to this here. I wrote right here on the control arm, flush. So when this gets pressed in, this portion of the control arm is going to be flush with this. The remainder will be protruding out towards the inside of the control arm. So I went ahead and I wrote flush, so when I'm pressing this in, I know that I stop once this comes out to this end. We have our press set up here. We have a receiving cup here, so when this comes in, it'll go into this cup. Let's see if we can start to work this in. Now I did apply a little bit of silicone paste to this here. Just got to keep an eye on it to make sure that it starts to go in straight. All right. So it took a little bit of pressure, but we're able to get that pushed in. Periodically checking. So at this point here, you can see that we have our bushing flush with this side here. Let's go ahead and install the control arm. Let's go ahead and raise our axle up into place here. Get our control arm up into place. Just going to get started a few threads. Now the axle is going to probably pop out here, but that's fine. Get the rear control arm up inside the frame. See if you can get that axle lined up a little bit. Now we're transitioning up to the upper portion of our assembly here, and we're going to go ahead and start by pulling out our ABS wire. Now I'm going to grab a finger on each side of it and I'm going to wiggle this out. You don't want to pull on the wire itself, and I'm going to do the same on the back here. Just trying to work that out. We want to free up this wire. There it is. Now, because we have to have an alignment done anyways, because we altered a suspension component, we're now going to go ahead and loosen and remove our knuckle to strut bolts. 18 millimeter wrench on the bolt side, and we're going to use a 21 millimeter socket on the nut side. I'm going to leave the bolts in for now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and remove the upper and lower bolts out of the knuckle, attaching it to the strut. Now we need to support this. We have our jack underneath our control arm area here, supporting this because we have the brake caliper and the bracket attached with our flex hose. Now the reason why we're doing this here is it is going to make this lower control arm installation so much easier. You're not going to have to struggle with anything. It's simply jack this up, get it lined up, get the bolts in, and then we can lower it back down, install our strut bolts, tighten and torque everything. Let's go ahead and start by tapping out this upper bolt. Okay, so let's go ahead, we're going to pull this away. We need to separate our strut. Just like so. Go ahead and take that strut and just kind of push it off to the side. Let's go ahead and feed our axle into our wheel hub. Let's go ahead and line up the control arm on the bottom here. And let's go ahead and start to jack this up. Let's make sure that that strut is out of the way. Now from underneath, I'm going to use a large awl to go ahead and just get it inside here to line that control arm bushing up. Pop that up inside. And let's go ahead and get that nut started. Now at this point here, we just want to go ahead and get our horizontal bolts put into the control arm. Now at this point here, you can go ahead and jack or lower the knuckle in order to get that bracket lined up. And then once we have those started, I'm going to go ahead and grab my wrench and run those in a little bit further. Now I'm just going to bottom these out. I'm not going to tighten them. Now by performing this job this way here, jacking up our knuckle and separating it from the strut, it allowed us to get all of our bushings lined straight up. That prevents you from having to work and twist that bushing and forcing it in. It doesn't always work out well. Now at this point here, we have all of our hardware installed there. We're going to slowly lower this down. Push this down and work this over. Line this up. Make sure that our axle is installed in the wheel hub itself, which it is. I'll go ahead and get my lower strut bolt in. Let's go ahead and get the upper installed. Now you may have to jack up your knuckle again here to get this upper bolt to line up. And then push in on this, get that bolt in. I'm just going to go ahead and get these started. We want to go ahead and lower the jack. We're not going to remove it yet, but we do want to lower it. And let's go ahead. I'm going to run these nuts down a little bit further here. While we're here, let's go ahead and install the ABS wire back into position. Here's a little tip. Spray the rubber with some spray solvent. It's going to allow these rubbers to slide in here a little bit easier. Let's go ahead and snug down our strut to knuckle bolts. Now we're going to go ahead and snug down our rearward bolt here. Now we're not going to tighten it, just snug it. There it is. Let's torque these down to 47 foot-pounds. Now that these are torqued, we need to turn them an additional 105 degrees. So what we're going to do is we're going to mark these at 6 o'clock using a marker. And 105 degrees is a little bit more than 90 degrees. So we need to get these pointing towards the front of the car and just a little bit upward. There it is. Let's go ahead and do the same for the rear. Perfect. The rearward vertical bolt on the control arm needs to get torqued to 77 foot-pounds. Now we need to tighten it an additional 180 degrees. Then go ahead and mark this with our marker on one corner. Then we're going to go ahead and rotate this, tightening it until that mark on the head of the bolt is completely on the opposite side. There it is. Rear bolt is all set. Go ahead and tighten down our ball joint nut. Go ahead and torque this at 36 foot-pounds. Now we need to tighten this ball joint nut an additional 40 degrees. Using the marker, go ahead and mark a point on there, point of reference. Perfect. Let's go ahead and install our axle bolt. And let's gently snug this down. Good, torque it down to 25 foot-pounds. Now we need to tighten that an additional 90 degrees. Use my Marker here. We need to tighten this an additional 90 degrees. I'm going to put a screwdriver. I'm going to go ahead and crank this about a quarter turn. Perfect. Remove the lug studs. Let's torque down our strut bolts to 77 foot-pounds. You have to tighten down the strut nuts here an additional 60 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that with a marker. I'm going to use my breaker bar here. And then do the same for the lower. Now that we have everything torqued in place here and you install your wheel, don't forget to bring the vehicle down and get the alignment performed. That's going to go ahead and prevent premature component wear and get you straight down the road. Let's go ahead and get your wheel set up. Once we get these all started, I'm going to come on back and zip them down. Now, in snugging this down, it's best to go ahead and do it in a crisscross or star pattern. Let's go ahead and torque down our lug studs here to 103 foot-pounds. It's best to do this in a crisscross or star pattern. And we're just going to double check these here. And you're all set. After finishing this installation, it's important to have an alignment done on your vehicle.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.